The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. A leper came to Jesus and, kneeling down, begged him and said, "If you wish, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, he stretched out his hand, touched him, and said to him, "I do will it. Be made clean." The leprosy left him immediately, and he was made clean. Then, warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. He said to him, "See that you tell no one anything, but go show yourself to the priest and offer for your cleansing what Moses prescribed. That will be proof for them." The man went away and began to publicize the whole matter. He spread the report abroad so that it was impossible for Jesus to enter a town openly. He remained outside in deserted places, and people kept coming to him from everywhere. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I'm pretty sure we're close to the end of the Gospel of Mark here, chapter 1. But we've been in chapter 1, all this brief interlude, if you will, for ordinary time. Now we're going to start Ash Wednesday. We kind of make a shift in the Gospels. But this chapter 1 of Mark is very important, Gospel of Mark. Here we have the leprosy edition, or leprosy version. This story about this leper who approaches Jesus and asks to be made clean. And when we hear leprosy, we automatically think about, Hansen's disease leprosy, or the leprosy that we have in our modern day, which we don't have in our modern day in developed countries, because basically it's cured by antibiotics for the most part. But let's look at this biblical leprosy. We call it something different. Biblical leprosy, not real leprosy. So there's a difference there. Biblical leprosy was one of the more hideous and terrifying afflictions that could have referred to a variety of severe skin disorders. Now, one of the skin disorders could have very well been actual leprosy, or Hansen's disease, as it's known in its medical form today, which is, in fact, a bacterial infection. It causes the skin to ulcerate. It results in oozing sores, disfigurement, loss of limbs, and occasionally blindness. That kind of leprosy, or Hansen's disease leprosy, while not very infectious, it is still chronic, can cause the loss of sensation and the development of facial nodules, but it rarely affects the scalp and is never white in color, right? So at the time, leprosy was incurable, and its diagnosis a virtual death sentence that caused people to be totally separated from others, and for a people-centered culture, that was a living death. You see that in the first reading. He was required to make his abode or his home outside of the camp, or outside of the regular dwelling of the regular people. And so then biblical leprosy, as discussed in the first reading, chapter 13 and 14, well, this is 13 from Leviticus. It may not have been modern-day leprosy, but it could have been. So we don't know for sure. Could have been, might not have been, but could also have been eczema or something else like that. As described in Leviticus, biblical leprosy was definitely repulsive. It was a scaly condition, perhaps like psoriasis. It could have been mold, since even clothes or walls could have had it. If you do further reading, and there you find out homes and things needed to be purified. Whatever biblical leprosy was, though, whatever it was certainly serious to our ancient ancestors. When you look at the law, Levitical law, So that law that comes from Leviticus chapter 13, verses 45 and 46, it states that the one who bears the sore of leprosy shall keep his garments rent and his head bare, and shall muffle his beard. He shall cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall dwell apart, making his abode outside the camp. We heard that in the first reading. Moreover, this goes in conjunction with Levitical law from chapter 19, verse 2. The people were supposed to be holy as the Lord your God is holy. This is law. You have to be holy as the Lord your God is holy. That meant bodily holiness and bodily integrity. All right, so if you were sick, you had to be pushed out of the community pretty much for a while until the priests were to declare you clean. So a leper was considered unholy and declared ritually impure under the law, and hence not fit to be in the presence of the Lord, that is, his temple, or among the people of God. And the law could do nothing to help them. Now, it gets even more detailed when you get into Leviticus 21. Anyone with physical imperfections was not holy as the Lord is holy. Any deformity says in Leviticus 21, 16 through 20, in that area, for no one who has a blemish may draw near, a man blind or lame, or one who has a mutilated face, or a limb too long, or a man with an injured foot, or an injured hand, or a hunchback, or a dwarf, or a man with a defect in his sight, or an itching disease or scabs, or, not sure how they got this one, crushed testicles. It's in there. Perhaps you got too close to a goat. I don't know. Not sure how you would have checked that either. All right? But the law declared all these people unfit. You cannot be among the other people. All right? So the law declared these lepers impure because they contaminated or polluted the community, not because they infected other people with a contagious disease. The stuff was not spreadable or contagious medically speaking. It was because they contaminated or polluted the community. Lepers transmitted a ritual impurity to things they touched, to those things they came in contact with, and to those who touched them, and to the places they entered. That was a problem for a community who is called to be holy. Again, bodily integrity. Everything had to be just right in that sense. The leper in the Gospel of Mark. Now we get there. That's all background. So all that is brought forward to this one incident. There's a leper that approaches Jesus. All right, but we need to know and understand all that background on Levitical law and how they viewed lepers and leprosy. So in this Gospel of Mark, this leper, he risks encountering the familiar reaction of horror and revulsion. He goes to Jesus anyway, and it says that he's asking to be made clean. Notice he does not ask to be cured. He does not ask to be healed. He asks to be made clean. He does not ask to be healed from his leprosy. He wants that declaration from someone who will declare him clean according to the law, so that he may do what? Rejoin human society. Okay, rejoin human society so he can rejoin the worship of the Lord in community. Something that a lot of people don't appreciate, or maybe are more appreciating these days. All right, he wants to come back to the people of God. He wants to worship in the temple. And so this is very, we can relate to this nowadays with this isolation that this leper experiences with the mask wearing that we're all asked to endure, the 6 feet of social distancing. We're still, although we're here today, we're still isolated. One of the reasons I don't wear a mask, not because of health, but also because you can't see me. You don't know if I'm angry with you or lecturing you or mad at you or joking with you. You can't tell, all right? And it's important for me to be able to communicate that way. So in that sense, now in the world and the culture we're living in, we are isolated. We are like this leper. We should be able to relate to this leper a little bit more. The leper, he just wants to participate in worship. He just wants to come to Mass. It's not Mass back then, but you get the point. He wishes to be declared clean. And Jesus, he does this And not only does this, declaring him clean, but he also gives him his life back. So the whole point is that he's restoring this leper to his life, and he is healing him. Something in addition to that he does not ask for. He then tells the man to go and show himself to the priests for their agreement. It'll be proof for them. Now, Jesus' holiness is all-powerful and invincible, blocking any contagion or contraction of ritual impureness or contact with the leper. Okay, this is where he goes and reaches out and he touches him. Can't touch a leper. They can't. Then if you touch a leper, then you're ritually impure. But Jesus, it's different. He doesn't contract the impurity because it's blocked, because of his holiness, because of who he is. He transmits holiness to those who approach him in humility and faith. And then it says, the text, then warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. And this is an interesting interpretation, because then if he dismisses him at once, somewhat you presume he starts walking away, and then he says, then he said to him. So who dismisses somebody, they start walking away and starts talking at their back? Probably not the case. So how do we understand this verse? Then warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once. This can be interpreted to mean that Jesus sternly charged and cast out the demon that was presumably causing the leprosy. That would fit with the rest of the theme of the Gospel of Mark so far that we have been encountering. All right, so that would fit. This interpretation would correspond to that major theme in the Gospel of Mark, that Satan is oppressing human beings with what? Illness, disease, with ritual impurity, with sickness and evil, with sin. Satan oppresses us with sin. And Jesus comes to liberate us from all of that. If verse 43, this then warning him sternly, he dismissed him at once, is interpreted as the other form, just the messianic secret. You know what the messianic secret is, right? This would go along with the later interpretation of the text, not to publicize his works. All right? Jesus does not want to get the wrong reputation. It means that he wishes to stay on track to the cross and not get sidetracked from his true mission. The Messiah of popular expectation, as you know, was a political or military leader to overthrow the Romans and usher in a new era of earthly peace and prosperity, for which Jesus is not that sort of Messiah. Now, in the end, the irony in the healing of the leper is that the leper gets to return to society, but Jesus must now remain outside in deserted places to avoid being mobbed by people seeking to benefit from his powers for the wrong reasons and without faith or humility. Jesus heals the leper at a cost to himself, which foreshadows the ultimate price Jesus pays on the cross for our healing and redemption of our sins. Now, while leprosy itself is virtually wiped out in developing nations, all of humanity still suffers from similar debilitating effects of loneliness and social stigma from other physical or interior afflictions in addition to sin. For instance, acne, autism, PTSD, leukemia, cancer, social awkwardness, mental illness, character weaknesses, emotional defects, and now government-imposed face covering wearing, and social distancing. In all that area, in all those things, we have this tendency to take on the identity of a leper, cast out and isolated. All right, so we all feel like lepers now in one sense, unable to rejoin society the way it used to be. Now, when Jesus touches the leper, what is he doing? He's challenging the judgment of his culture. He's challenging the judgment of his culture. In the judgment of Jesus, the leper is not polluting, and by touching him, restores him to full membership in God's community and solidarity in human fellowship. For us to ponder, what can we do today Or how can we challenge the judgment of our present culture as Jesus did?